Hi everyone, Dr. Suneel Dhand, medical doctor. Welcome to another video. I want to talk in this video about what I would hypothetically do if I was diagnosed with high cholesterol. Cholesterol, of course, is something that the medical establishment is very focused on, and this is going to be a tea with Dr. Dhand style video. I have my cup of tea here, as usual, with the Indian spices in it. Hopefully you have a cup of tea or coffee with you as well as we discuss an important topic. Let's have a sip. So good. Okay, so let's dive in. What would I do if I was diagnosed with high cholesterol? If a doctor said to me, your cholesterol is high, what would Dr. Dhand do? As a doctor who specializes in metabolic health, who wants to address root causes, and always wants to avoid prescription medications, it's not my intention. I hope to never be on a prescription medication. I will exhaust everything possible naturally before I jump to a prescription. That has been my philosophy for a very long time. So what is a high cholesterol level? Well, how long is a piece of string? It really is a judgment call, if I could call it that, by any doctor when they have this discussion with any patient. Some doctors like to be hyper aggressive with cholesterol, and by cholesterol I'm mainly talking about the LDL, the low density cholesterol, which is known as the bad cholesterol. That's the cholesterol that doctors are most commonly concerned with. So let's just say that my cholesterol was mildly elevated by today's standards. The LDL cholesterol was 120s, 130s, 140s. Now again, different doctors might say it's mildly elevated, moderately elevated. As it starts getting up towards 200 or above, there might even be a genetic issue involved. So one can never apply a broad principle to everyone. So I'm giving you a hypothetical situation here. And of course, as always, common sense rules the day. This is not direct medical advice. I'm telling you sincerely what I would do as somebody who wants to avoid a medication, because we know statins are dished out like candy nowadays. The statin industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. I've seen statistics that statins have made more money or generate more money yearly than many small countries. So think about that for a moment. So yes, a statin medication will lower the LDL bad cholesterol. They will fix the number, but the question is, what does that really mean? And have you even touched the upstream issue, the root cause problem? Because if your doctor really is a follow the science person, as the medical profession likes to pride itself on, I mean, where have we heard that before? Follow the science. So let's actually follow the science. Let's look at the actual papers from pharma companies when they did the studies. When you actually dive into the data, you will find that it's not anywhere nearly as impressive. Ask your doctor, say to them, in my demographic, tell me, how many hundreds of people need to take a statin medication to prevent one heart attack or one stroke? I suspect it won't be very impressive at all if you actually hear it. It's actually in the hundreds. So to me, that is not something that I would be absolutely wild about, especially if side effects are involved as well. And I've presented some research to you before about potentially a link with other conditions. If you're hyper aggressive with lowering cholesterol, remember the brain is 60% fat, and there is a potential link with cognitive decline and dementia. There's even a link potentially with type 2 diabetes. So nothing which is done in medicine is without potential side effects and adverse events. And that reinforces, in my mind, the need to try to avoid prescriptions wherever possible. I have no interest whatsoever in being on a statin medication. Maybe the one caveat to that would be, and I can't say if somebody's ever hit with an acute event like a heart attack or a stroke, out of the blue with the emotional burden of that as well. If a doctor says to you, well, we want to lower your risk by any means possible, here's a statin. Well, of course, that's a different situation. I'm talking about a more chronic situation, and there are millions of people who are in this circumstance. And as I've also talked about before, the most common reason for elevated cholesterol is insulin resistance and inflammation. Insulin resistance is the true pandemic these days. Hundreds of millions of people, including many youngsters, walking around with insulin resistance because of the terrible food environment and the unfortunate fact that so many people are pummeling their bodies with ridiculous amounts of carbohydrates, sugars, and processed foods, and that gets converted into fat via a process known as de novo lipogenesis. I've touched on this before. So there are all sorts of inflammatory processes going on by the time most people's cholesterol is elevated. A lot of oxidative stress, metabolic dysfunction, mitochondrial dysfunction, a lot of other generalized inflammation, and then it is reflected in the cholesterol being high. And rather than just fix a number, I would rather deal with the root cause issue and suppress the inflammation and the insulin resistance. Some of you may ask, well, how do I diagnose insulin resistance? Well, of course, we know that pre-diabetics and type 2 diabetics are insulin resistant, but there's another excellent blood test that I've talked about many times before called HOMA-IR. HOMA-IR. I'll include a link to a video I made on that down below. But you want the HOMA-IR to be as close to 1 as possible. So I would immediately think to myself, if I was told you have elevated cholesterol, I would think, well, am I insulin resistant? Let me get that blood test, and then I will diligently work on any natural way possible to reverse the insulin resistance and improve my cholesterol. So here are some lifestyle factors to think about. But first, let's have a sip of my Indian spice tea again. By the way, we also have an organic chai mix coming out soon with the ingredients that I use, so please do keep a lookout for that if you're interested. Okay, I'm going to briefly and succinctly go over now what I would be thinking and what I would be doing if I had an elevated cholesterol. By the way, I should also mention that if my cholesterol was elevated out of the blue on one blood test, and the last blood test was not elevated and nothing else had changed, then I would probably ask for a repeat blood test, because it's not uncommon for the result to be erroneous. But let's just say that it is genuinely elevated. What would be my thought process to naturally bring my cholesterol down? So here we go then. I will go over these. I mentioned the HOMA-IR. I would get that blood test, and usually in most people, it will confirm insulin resistance because the blood test is significantly elevated or the calculation is elevated above 1. So the first question I would ask myself is, do I have excess body fat? Which is obviously going to be a reflection of underlying inflammation and insulin resistance. So how can I diagnose excess body fat? Unless, obviously, I can do so simply by looking in the mirror. To get a more accurate scientific picture, I would get some body fat scales. There are many that are available, scales that measure body fat, and I would measure that. Now, obviously, like any measurement, it's not going to be 100% accurate. There are different measurements that can be done, like grabbing the amount of fat in your abdomen and measuring it, but usually the body scales will be quite accurate. And as a general rule, women will run at a higher body fat percentage than men, about 10 points higher, 10 percentage points higher. That's a natural thing. So you can go online after you calculate your body fat percentage, and you can look at what your body fat percentage is compared to the ideal. I'm not suggesting comparing it to an athlete, but you can compare it to somebody who doesn't have excess body fat. So that's the first thing to work on diligently. And how can you lose body fat? Well, hopefully those of you who have followed me for some time, you will know that the cornerstone of everything in terms of your health is what you put on your plate. So eat real food, eliminate those processed foods, excessive carbohydrates and sugars, and really focus on what you eat. You can't really go wrong with a simple meal, a protein and 2 vegetables. I do think tracking calories is good. I know sometimes you hear in the online world especially that this is no longer a thing, that it's not accurate. Granted, it's not always a good thing, especially in a world of processed foods, but it still will give you a good picture. So it's good to track calories. There's lots of ways you can do this. There are a lot of apps out there as well where you can track your calories every day, and you can get a picture not only of your calorie intake every day and whether it's excessive, but also your macros. So please focus, keep it simple with regards to your diet, track your calories, and have a weight loss plan in place if you have excessive body fat, because that is a great way to naturally lower your cholesterol levels, to naturally work on some weight loss. Other techniques that can be utilized, intermittent fasting. You could do a 14 to 16 hour fast if your body's not used to this. Obviously do it gradually, but a lot of people have success by eating in an 8 or 10 hour window during the day, something like 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. That works for lots of people, or noon to 6 or 8 p.m. A lot of people can have a 6-hour eating window if they want to achieve better results over a shorter period, but do something which is sustainable and that your body can cope with. Okay, number 2, get moving and do some muscle strengthening. Do not underestimate how amazing it is simply to walk. And again, there are lots of ways that you can measure your steps. You can buy a pedometer for about $10 these days. You can have an app on your phone, but try to get an absolute minimum of 10,000 steps in. I know it's become a cliche. I actually prefer double that. I prefer 20,000 steps, but most people aren't even getting 4,000 or 5,000 steps. Our bodies are built to move, so please move as much as possible and diligently track this. Like anything else, like I just mentioned with calories, what you measure, you manage. So measure how many steps you're taking every day and don't underestimate the power of simply moving more if you're not. Ideally, throw in some muscle strengthening. I'm a 1 hour a day exercise guy, preferably in the gym. But you can do whatever you want as long as it involves moving and muscle strengthening. You can do home exercises with resistance bands, dumbbells. You can do body weight exercises. You can even do an online exercise class. And if you've never done it before, start at only 20 minutes 3 times a day. I always think to myself when people say, well, I don't have time for exercise. Well, if you look statistically, most people spend hours every day scrolling their phones or watching TV. Most people do have time for exercise. You simply have to make it a priority. 1 hour a day, and that can certainly include brisk walking as well. 1 hour a day is only 4% of your day. That is it, and it will reap you enormous benefits and help with natural cholesterol reduction. Okay, time for another sip of tea here. And appropriate that I just took a sip because number 3 is stay hydrated. Ideally actually with water, and I have my water with a slice of lemon in it here as well. But most people out there do not drink enough water, and this is such a simple way to improve your health. How many glasses of water should you be drinking? Well, again, how long is a piece of string? This really varies by age and whether you have any underlying medical conditions, etc. But most people at least should be drinking several good glasses of water every single day. And it also helps with other things like feeling full. Many times when people feel hungry, they're actually thirsty, and a good glass of water can help to suppress the appetite and stretch the stomach a bit. So please remember to stay well hydrated if you want natural cholesterol lowering. So hopefully these points so far are ringing a bell with you. They're all common sense ways to improve your health in a variety of ways, but specifically with natural cholesterol reduction, which goes hand in hand with natural insulin resistance reversal. If anyone out there is interested in a more detailed plan and guide, a roadmap to achieve this goal, check out my MetThrive method. I created this for anyone who wants to naturally reverse insulin resistance and achieve natural holistic fat loss. We've got some great reviews so far. Please check it out in the links down below. Number 4, stress. This is easily forgotten about, but stress is ubiquitous in today's toxic mainstream culture. Stress is everywhere. People are stressed about work, people are stressed about their family life, people are stressed about other things, people are stressed about world events. That's what the mainstream media is designed to do. Keep us stressed and keep us coming back for more. It is so important to recognize if stress is a problem for you. And this is always something when I'm coaching people, it is so unique to everybody what their stresses are and how they can successfully lower their stress levels. So I would urge you, if you think stress is a problem for you, this is going to be devastating for your metabolic health. And there's also a link with high cholesterol, general inflammation, and insulin resistance. So you definitely want to take that step back, think very carefully, what are areas of your life where you are stressed, and what can you do to successfully lower those stress levels? Can you combat the source of stress and eliminate it from your life? Lots of times that's not possible, and it comes to managing the stress effectively. For me personally, the philosophy of Stoicism has been very helpful. You can see the book behind me, Meditations by Emperor Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor, one of the greatest people that has ever lived. But even away from a philosophy to deal with stress, what can you do practically to lower your stress levels? What works for you to take your mind to a better place, to lower those cortisol and adrenaline levels, which are so devastating? Do you have a hobby that you can regularly engage in? Do you want to learn a new skill? Get out into the community. Maybe watch your favorite comedy show. Meditation, Exercise, that works for me. That's a great stress reducer for me. I go to the gym for an hour and get an immediate boost. But whatever works for you to reduce stress, a walk in nature perhaps, it's so unique to everyone, and it's so important that you continue to work on this and you take it very seriously indeed. And number 5, sleep enough. This is also something which is overlooked. Rightly, people focus on diet and exercise, but if you're not sleeping enough, it can cancel out a lot of the positive things you're doing. So please put effort into getting restful, adequate sleep every night. Practice good sleep hygiene, so don't look at a bright screen before bed. Have a relaxation routine at the end of the day. Keep your room as cool as possible. Generally, most people don't like it too hot. Don't eat a large meal or drink a lot of water late before you go to sleep. But please get an ideal amount of sleep. How much is ideal? Well, it varies again by everybody, but generally, studies have shown that a sweet spot is between 6.5 to 8.5 hours for most people. So please do prioritize sleep. So let's go over all of those points again. Natural cholesterol reduction. If I was told that I had elevated cholesterol, I would immediately want to know if I was insulin resistant. And for most people out there, they are insulin resistant. So these are the things you should do. Number 1, do you have excessive body fat? And if you do, you need to work on a realistic and sustainable weight loss strategy, which hopefully is entirely natural, centered on a real food diet. Number 2, get moving and get a strength routine going. Number 3, stay well hydrated. Number 4, work on stress in your life. And number 5, make sure you sleep enough. So that is what I would do personally. And the reality is that most people who actually do this, they feel much better after only a few weeks. They get their blood test done and they are much better as well. And it's one of the best things for me as a doctor when somebody decides to embark on this path. They decide they don't want to be a recurrent customer of the medical industrial complex. They want to do things naturally because they actually want to deal with root cause issues. They know that a medicine, a pill, is not the answer here. The answer is to really think, why are cholesterol levels elevated and what are the real root causes that can be addressed naturally? Okay, time for another sip of tea before I finish this video off. So please do give that some thought. And once more, this is not direct medical advice. Everybody needs to have these discussions with their doctor, but we all know the reality of the modern medical industrial complex and the paradigm out there. A pill for every ill. I personally don't think statins are the long-term answer by any stretch of the imagination for society. There have been some ridiculous, even recent quotes saying that everybody over a certain age, I think the recent one I saw was from the United Kingdom, everybody over 50 should be on a statin medication as if there's some magic drug. Instead of getting to the root cause issue, well, why are millions of people walking around with elevated cholesterol? What's going on in their body? And let's think about root causes and tell people the truth of why their cholesterol is high. Present them with real options and tell them honestly and transparently that medications may fix a number, but they're not going to help with much more beyond that. And the statistics are not good at all. If you decide to go down the natural route, you are going to have much greater benefits than most pills and injections out there. So I leave you with that thought. That is what I would do if my cholesterol was high and I was insulin resistant. I would be all in on naturally reversing it. I'm not interested in a statin. I'm not interested in other prescription medications. I want to do things a natural way because I want to feel as good as possible naturally. And I want the same for everybody else. I want you to be the best version of yourself, ideally prescription drug free. Thanks everyone for watching. Dr. Suneel Dhand. Let me know your thoughts down below. Feel free to comment. I enjoy hearing from all of you. Do check the links in the description down below, again, for my natural holistic MetThrive method, insulin resistance reversal, and holistic fat loss program. Also links for my website and all the other work I do. Hit the like button if you like this video and the subscribe button for more similar videos in the future. We will speak again very soon.